What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Friday's edition of Daily Betslip. I'm Donnavan Smoot. Got your boy Ben Heisler with me. Ben, what's going on?
What's happening, Donovan? I think I was looking down, making sure that our tweet went down, didn't realize that we went live, and here you are once again, just like yesterday in our WNBA picks, completely carrying the segment. So I'm thankful for you, man. That's a good teammate right there.
It's all. Listen, it happens sometimes. Sometimes it happens. We got to the end of the week. It's all good though. But listen, we have a whole bunch on the show today. We have some baseball, some WNBA. We're gonna get to our game of the night, which is game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals in the NHL, Lightning and Rangers. But I want to start off with our bad beat of the day, coming from game 1 of the finals last night. Jaylen Brown's point total was at 24 and a half. And so if you had watched the show yesterday, you would have seen me take the under and avoid the bad beat. But the bad beat came because, so Ben, he had 24 points exactly. And the line was set at 20. It's a completely just a brutal beat. Had 10 points in the first 4.5 minutes of the fourth quarter to get to 24, and it did not score for the rest of the quarter. Just a terrible beat.
Yeah, brutal beat if you had the over on Jaylen Brown. And frankly, I know it doesn't necessarily constitute, Donovan, as a bad beat. And maybe I'll take some flack for this, but the way that I see it, man, if you had the Warriors -3.5 and then Boston down double digits heading into the fourth quarter goes on a 40-16 run to end the game, I can tell you multiple people that I know on a group text that were counting their money for that Warriors bet. Now, I was completely out of it because, I was looking at the over thinking fairly pretty good. I still had something to be able to consider here. But, man, oh, man, if you were on the Warriors thinking, all right, they're defeated at home, they're heading in, they got exactly where they want them. You even wrote an article over at BetSided about how dominant Golden State had been entering the fourth quarter. Boston gave them a taste of their own medicine that I don't think anybody was expecting.
Exactly. So the Warriors, and like you said in that article, I said the Warriors were outscoring their opponents going into game 1 by 25.4 points per 100 possessions in the fourth quarter. They were absolutely dominating. And if you want to talk about counting your money, I was spending my money, right? I was spending the money already and just ready to line up and unbox everything. And the Warriors just came in the Celtics came in and blew everything up. And so luckily for me, the Jaylen Brown under 24, that was the only thing that saved the night in terms of things that hit, because outside of that, everything else went wrong.
Just a rough go, man. And again, we're going to be able to rectify that wrong. At least you were on the right side of it, so you gave out a winner. But I know there were a lot of people that were hurting quite a bit when it came to that beat from yesterday. But there's some really good plays on the board today. No NBA, obviously. That'll be coming a little bit later on this weekend. I'm excited to go over our best bets with you today on a shortened show. We're only with you guys for about a half hour today before we're heading out ahead of the weekend. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with a little baseball? Do you want to start with a little WNBA? I like that you and I are we're compatible again with our plays once again. Where do you want to go here?
Yeah, let's start with our baseball plays. I want to hear your baseball plays for tonight. There's a lot going on. We have, some double headers today and even tomorrow. Where are you looking at in Major League Baseball for your props tonight?
All right, so let's kick things off here with a few different plays on the Major League Baseball side. The first is I'm going to go with, I think, the game of the night. I know that you have two pitchers going at it in between the Padres and the Brewers tonight. It's the two favorites on the board when it comes to Cy Young candidates and Joe Musgrove and Corbin Burns. I didn't necessarily have a good play for that game, but I do feel like I have a better sense of what to do heading into the game against the Mets and the LA Dodgers. So wrote about this over at BetSided today. I like the Mets as a money line dog in this game. It's an exciting matchup because you have Chris Bassett on the mound going up against Tyler Anderson. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, Donovan. Do you remember Mr. Anderson You're always trying to figure out a way to get around him. I think this is the day that we finally see a team get around Mr. Anderson, because let's face it, he's 6-0, solid ERA for the year. They just haven't found a way to be able to slow him down this year. But I think the Mets are one of those teams that's going to actually play well against him. And I like the line at plus 140. So I was trying to determine whether or not Anderson has been just really, really good, or if he's been lucky. And he's actually been a combination of both. If you look over his numbers over the course of his career, he's 32 years old. He doesn't throw the ball particularly hard. He's third percentile for fastball velocity this year. But what he's done so well is limit hard contact. He's in the 91st percentile. And he's also making guys swing at bad pitches out of the zone. His rate of 97 percentile in chase rate. So basically, guys are just swinging outside of the zone on a lot of those pitches. They're getting fooled. The other thing is, for as much as he's kept hitters off balance, when he has been hit in the middle of the zone, he's actually gotten hit pretty hard. His expected slugging percentage is actually in the 45th percentile. Expected batting average is in the 59th. And in barrel percentage, guys are really hitting the ball hard against him. They're getting in on the sweet spot of this bat. And Anderson has had luck this year against some good teams, some not so good teams, but the Mets are by far and away the best team that he's faced. So factoring both of the pitching matchups, Bassett's also had a really good year. He's actually the league leader in baseball in velocity against. So when guys are putting the ball in play, it's actually at the slowest speed in baseball. So these pitchers are very much the same. Just one is from the left side, one is from the right side, but Bassett has a longer history of being effective. The Mets and the Dodgers, it's basically an even matchup tonight. So the fact that you're just having to pay a lot more extra for LA at home doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I like the Mets to cover on the road, be able to even up this series at one game apiece.
No, look, I like that play a lot. And especially, I know that the Dodgers are at home, but they just got swept by Pittsburgh. They just got swept by the Pirates. There's a little bit going on that you can probably find a little bit of value on. So I'm all for that play. I want to get your take on my prop for tonight. And this is the guy that both of us, kind of like we've bet on before. I'm taking the over on Shane Bieber's strikeouts. His line is set at 6 strikeouts tonight, minus 125 odds. And I'm taking it because he's playing Baltimore, right? He's playing the Orioles. And although Baltimore, I'm going to give them credit. They are better this year than what I thought they were going to be. They have come out, they've won a couple games. However, they are still very, very good at swinging and missing. They strike out at the 6th highest rate in the league, right, in baseball right now. And Bieber, over his last 3 starts, has been on top of it. He has 22 strikeouts in his last 3 outings. He's not giving up a whole bunch of runs. The hits, they come here and there, but he's been really, really solid, and he's cleared this line in 2 of the last 3. So I think that when you face a very, very, aggressive team like the Orioles, who like to swing and, come out missing, a lot of times you can get a little bit of value here.
So Bieber's a really interesting case, because you're right. Over the last several starts, you're starting to see the velocity get back maybe close to where it was from the last 2 seasons. He hasn't officially gotten there yet. And for somebody who's still hanging around the pack as far as American League Cy Young awards go, he's been better, but he hasn't been vintage Shane Bieber. But I think right now it's a good time to jump on board against the Orioles, because he's going deeper into games. The swing and miss stuff is back. He's catching hitters a little bit more off guard. In Baltimore, you're right. They were on that run for a while, and especially at home, they've been a better team. They've actually been a very good run line team this year. But I think it makes all the sense in the world. It surprised me a little bit to have that number at 6. Some sports books even had it at 5.5. I figured somebody like Bieber, almost at a bare minimum against the Orioles, you'd probably see it at 6.5. That's where I would personally project it to be. So the fact that you can get it for under 6.5, even if it reaches that number and he still goes 5, 6, 7 innings, he should almost be guaranteed to get to that total. So I like it quite a bit.
Okay. That's what's your? I know you have one more baseball pick, and then we both have some WNBA action tonight. So what's your last MLB pick for the night?
All right. Well, yeah, I'm glad that you and I can rep the WNBA together on Friday, because I actually weighed in yesterday's show. I was hoping that you'd be able to get that pick out. It ended up being a winner with the Sun taking them at plus odds against the vaunted Las Vegas Aces. But for me, it's going to be a player prop against a pitcher that has been known to struggle a little bit this year, but I actually think he's in an advantageous spot, and that's Vince Velasquez for the Chicago White Sox. Sox have been bad. Velasquez has been bad, but actually, as of late, he pitched some of his best baseball over the season. 3 innings against the Boston Red Sox, scoreless ball, struck out 5 of the 10 hitters that he faced. He is still searching for it a little bit, just a lot of up and down, a lot of hard contact, a lot of home runs, but he's still striking out batters about 22% of the time this year. There's still a bunch of swing and miss in what he's able to go out and throw on the mound. The nice part is that in that game against Boston, you have to go all the way back to May 24th. So he's basically had a week and a half off. And for somebody like Velasquez, who was basically brought in to be the long guy / emergency guy for what was supposed to be a very deep White Sox rotation and bullpen, it's been anything but that this year. The fact that he can go in, have some rest, and be able to go and get a Rays offense that's bottom 12 in strikeout percentage, I think 4.5 is just a little bit too low. And that's probably why you see the number at -135. I think he can get to that point where he's striking out at least 5-6 guys on this Tampa lineup because of the fact that he's going to still get swings and misses. The Rays are still being more aggressive in a lot of these pitch counts than we've seen from them before. Their walk rate isn't particularly good this year. It's still a good lineup, and I still expect the Rays to win, but Velasquez still should be able to retire via strikeout several of these batters. And I think it's a fair line to get it at over 4.5. So I really like that line quite a bit. His number is actually 5.5, Donovan, at several sports books tonight. So the fact that you're getting a full run or a full number discount from 4.5 to 5.5 at WinBet tells me that this is a great opportunity here.
Yeah. And look, you talk about the difference between, WinBet and some other sports books, and this line is down. The Shane Bieber line actually moved from 5.5 to 6. So you've seen a lot of people, thinking kind of the same way that we are in that the over on those on these props is kind of where to go. I want to go to the WNBA where we'll finish off the best bet. So you and I right now are a combined 20-13.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
We are 20-13 on our WNBA picks this year. We went 1-1 last night with the Sun. The Sun covered and won against the best team in the league, Las Vegas Aces. The over was shattered. I think you played the under.
I did. Yeah. Neither of those teams missed a shot. Like they just basically wanted to say, all right, Ben, you're getting a little cocky. You're on a 9-0 run. We need to humble you a little bit, and humble me they did. I think both teams shot for a while, like 60% from the floor. It got ugly very, very fast for your boy.
Yeah. And listen, I would have, and like you said, I would have gave my Sun pick out yesterday, but up until last night, you have been carrying the team, so I was not as confident. I got my win last night, and so now I'm kind of back on it. And because I backed the Sun last night, I'm going to back them again tonight. They were plus 4.5 last night. They're -5.5 tonight against the Mercury, and I'm going to back them to cover tonight because Phoenix is really lost this year. They've lost 6 games in a row. Obviously, there's the Brittany Griner situation that's hanging over the entire team, and that is a really, really tough situation for them to deal with. But if we talk about the people who are on the floor and who are going right there, Connecticut has the advantage basically everywhere. And if you look at the metrics, there's a very, very strong argument that the Sun, even though that the record isn't the second best in the league, that the Sun are the second best team in the WNBA. They are second in points per game. They're first in win margin. They are fourth in opponents' points per game. They're second in defensive rating. They are fifth in defensive rating and second in offensive rating. They just have everything going. And you look at their roster and you look at everything that they have defensively. Defensively, they have all kinds of length and versatility. They still have, obviously Jonquel Jones, who won the MVP last year. You have 5 players averaging double figures for the Sun right now. They're just a well-rounded team and a really well-oiled machine. So I think that they are obviously trending in the right direction. And Phoenix, they have no direction right now. So I'm going to fade them tonight.
I don't blame you for fading Phoenix one bit. I remember, I think I might have been even on this show. I don't know if it was with you or not, but I came here and said, all right, you remember when when Candace and Diana Taurasi were going at each other, I thought, all right, this is their Jimmy Butler, Eric Spoelstra, we're going to come together moment, and it's been anything but that. It's so weird because this is such a talented team that has not gelled together at all this year, and they're not playing any defense. We saw in one of their more previous games, the Mercury have been a disaster defensively, and there's stars on this team that preach defense. Like, I know that the Taurasi, especially now, isn't the defender that she used to be, and she's a prolific scorer, but that's somebody that demands accountability, and it just doesn't feel like there's accountability with this team right now. I completely understand it. Like, you don't have your best player in Brittany Griner, and a lot of those thoughts are with her as she's now 100 plus days being detained in Russia. That could take an enormous toll. But I'm with you. I just don't see how you go ahead and go against this team. The one thing that I will ask you about is it was a huge win last night for the Connecticut Sun. Like, that's a prove it win. Go on the road after taking an 8-point loss against Las Vegas. Then you go and beat them in their building on the second night. And now you're going on a back-to-back to Phoenix. Does that part concern you that maybe there's an opportunity for a bit of a letdown here?
If it was a team that looks a little bit more solid and together than Phoenix, maybe. But I look at Phoenix and I look at everything that they're doing, and you look at the two stars in Skylar Diggins-Smith and Diana Taurasi, and the numbers. If you just look at the raw numbers, they're not terrible, right? Skylar is averaging 16 points a game. Yeah. Diana Taurasi is averaging 13.2, and honestly, the overall efficiency isn't. It's not terrible, right? If you look at like the free throw percentage, but if you look at how they're shooting from the field, Skylar Diggins is shooting 43% from the field. Diana Taurasi is shooting 35%. They're both shooting under 33% from three. And so when you have your main two offensive engines not being efficient, you're not setting up your offense to be a very successful one. And so that's why if it was any other team, maybe the back-to-back comes into play, but I think Connecticut has a really, really good advantage tonight.
I think that makes a ton of sense. And turns out, even from when we last had this conversation at the beginning of the show, we've seen some major line movement in this game over at WinBet. It is now Sun -7 on the road against Phoenix. And that's almost unprecedented, Donnavan, to have that type of a jump, be that big of a favorite heading into that game on the road on a back-to-back. Like, I get that Connecticut's a really good team, and I know that the public would likely want to jump on board with them, but usually, almost always, the Sharps are going to be on the team that's not on the back-to-back, especially going on the road for the second straight game. I think it tells you everything you need to know. The Mercury are a mess right now, and I don't think anybody wants to touch them. But the game that I like is another underplay. Like, I want to get burned again, Donnavan. I want to go ahead and suffer yet again, but it really adds up for me with the Sky and the Dream tonight. There's another game that I know you wrote about between the New York Liberty and the Washington Mystics. Like, the total is 154 in that game. I don't even know if I'd bet the over if the total was 134. Like, that's going to be super low scoring. But I really do like the under in the Sky versus Dream tonight. And I think a lot of folks might say, well, like, these are stars on this team. There's Candace Parker. There's Ryan Howard. Why would you take the under between these two elite players in the league? Honestly, if you really look at some of the numbers for the Dream, it hasn't been their offense that's brought them to a surprising 6-3 record this year. They've been a very good defensive team. They actually lead the WNBA in opponent points per 100 possessions. And as for the Sky, yeah, Candace Parker's on the team, and they're still, a well-rounded team, both offensively and defensively, but they're slow and they end up playing efficient. Think of like Villanova as a good example for kind of how the Sky like to operate a little bit. Like, they'll take some 3-point shots, they'll go inside out, but they don't necessarily push pace. And so you have two very good defenses. The Sky rank 8th in possessions per 40 minutes, but they're 5th in points per scoring attempt. And Atlanta have gotten in the 80s over their last two games. But if you look at who they've played, it's against two of the worst teams in the league, against Phoenix and Minnesota. So to me, this is one of those, it's just going to be kind of a grind it out, slow it down, back and forth type game where I expect both teams to probably end up being in the 70s by the time things are said and done. So I know that the popular underplay tonight is going to be with New York and Washington because of how elite Washington's defense is. But I don't think people are paying enough attention to how good both of these two defenses are, especially the Dream. So I think you look at their offensive numbers, they look good over the last couple games, but what's gotten them to this point to be one of the better, more surprised teams in the league has been how dominant they've been lately defensively. So I like the under again. Give me under 156 between the Sky and the Dream.
No, look, the under, that's a really good play. And for the year, overs have been hitting, but if you look at the last week, it's starting to trend a little bit more towards the under. Unders are 8 and 6 over the last 7 days. And so you're starting to see that number, you're starting to see defenses tick up a little bit more. Shots are starting to miss a little bit more. So the under is a really good play. And you mentioned Washington and New York and the under in that game. And while that is a very, very solid play, and I might actually play that tonight, the one that I'm going to focus on for that game is I'm going to take Washington minus 11.5 versus the Liberty tonight. And I said earlier that the analytics and the numbers can make a case that the Sun are the second best team in the league. You can also make that argument for the Washington Mystics, right? And so if you look at what the Mystics are able to do, the Mystics they have the second best record in the league. They have the best defense in the league if we're talking about opponents' points per game. They're third in defensive rating. They're fifth in offensive rating. And one of the reasons why I think that they, excuse me, one of the reasons why I think that they'll be able to win by 12 is because they play at a very, very slow pace, as the Liberty do as well. And so if you're telling me that this team, who is immensely better on offense, is going to get a style that fits what they want to do against a team that is terrible on offense like the New York Liberty, I don't see a way that the Liberty can beat the Mystics at their own game. I know that they're at home. Obviously, Sabrina Ionescu is always live to have a big game, but you look at the Mystics and they're well-rounded. They have Elena Deladon back this year, and they look complete and they look whole. And so that's why I think that at minus 11.5, they're still very, very live to cover that large spread.
Yeah, and give the Liberty a little bit of credit because they needed a win in the most desperate of forms. They got one against an Indiana team that got a big win following the firing of their head coach. But then Carlos Knox went ahead and lost that game against the Liberty, going 1-1 since he took over. But you're right. Like Washington I've said it before on the show, when you're able to isolate, a player like Ryan Howard and take her completely out of the game, that means something. Like she came into that game leading the WNBA in scoring, was held to 0 for 9 from the floor. And then you have Washington losing a tough game on the road against Connecticut, 79-71. That's not I don't look at Washington any differently for going into an environment like Connecticut and losing that game. That's a quality team. And I know I've talked about them as being bum slayers this year. And for the most part, they have basically played nobody. You can't say that about Connecticut anymore. Like now they actually deserve a lot of their rankings. But Washington has done everything that you've asked of them. They've been a very good, a very elite defense. And you're right. It's going to just be a slow-paced game. I'm actually a bit surprised to see the total actually at 154. Like I said, I thought this would be a game like in the low 150s, maybe the high 140s. So I would still probably lean under on this one, but you're not going to have to convince me not to take the Mystics as a big home favorite here against the Liberty, because that's a team that's 0-4 away from home. Got that win against Indiana, but Indiana's not a good team. It's the Liberty and Indiana for the two worst teams in the WNBA this year.
Yeah. Listen, hopefully tonight's WNBA slate for us goes well. We're looking obviously for a perfect game. But before, we move on to the game of the night, we have a recap graphic of all of our picks so that we can go through them one more time. So you are on Mets money line plus 140 against the Dodgers, Vince Velasquez over 4.5 strikeouts, and the Sky and the Dream under 156. While I am on the over on Shane Bieber strikeouts. That line is set at 6. I'm taking the Sun minus 5.5 versus the Mercury tonight, and the Mystics minus 11.5 versus the Liberty. And those are our best bets for the night. Yeah, all winners. That's all we do on this show. It's all winners and all locks. And so with that in mind, let's go into another game that honestly, Ian and I were both on the wrong side in game one. We're going to look to, you and I will look to rectify that today. And we're going to go to our game of the night, which is game 2 of the Lightning and the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Finals in the NHL. And so I want to get your best bet for this game, because game one went kind of different than a lot of us saw. I think the only person who saw this coming was maybe Peter, but he is blindly betting the Rangers this entire series. So where are you going for your best bet in this game?
I was tempted to go with the Lightning. I feel like there's so many things that set me up for success with that play, but I kind of have to stick to my guns. I was going on the under in game one. Obviously, that hit by the second period on the over side, and I was left feeling a little bit dejected after that. But this is a Tampa team that is still elite defensively. I can't get over how they completely took out the Florida Panthers in that previous series and limited them to, I think, 4 goals over the course of a 4-game sweep, 3 goals maybe. I have to double check those numbers, but I mean, this was the best team in the NHL. It's the best scoring team in the NHL. So one game against a hot Rangers team right now isn't going to change my perspective on how I feel about the Lightning defensively. I think Vasilevsky's still an elite level goaltender, and I know that Shesterkin is too. So if the line was 5.5 for game one, and we know that Tampa is more likely to even the series tonight as the favorite, it's likely going to be as a result of Vasilevsky playing out of his mind. And because Shesterkin has been so good over the course of the postseason as well, this feels like one of those 2-1, maybe 3-1 type games where the under is sitting pretty by the time this thing is over. So I really do like the under once again. I'm going to go ahead and stick with my guns for game 2 because I like the Lightning to win, but I feel like it's still more of a game that Tampa's going to try to slow down, because that's when they've been most effective, is really taking out a lot of these teams that have been hot offensively.
And I like that pick as well. I'm actually gonna take it. I think that what you're saying is right, but I'm gonna take it that the next step. I'm going with the Lightning money line tonight, minus 130. And like you said, I'm not thrown off of my game because of one loss to a hot Rangers team. The Lightning they've played better this entire postseason. If you look at game one, I know that the Rangers scored 6 goals, but if you look at a stat that our guy Ian likes to reference a lot, high danger scoring chances, the Rangers had 12 in game one, while the Lightning had 16. So all they did, they capitalized on their opportunities, which is something that you have to do. But in terms of generating those opportunities and being a better offensive team, Tampa Bay showed once again that they're going to be able to put the pressure on New York to do that. And so I think that they kind of right the ship tonight. They will not go down 2-0 to this Rangers team to tie it up at 1-1, and they'll get the money line. And also, the other person or other people, I should say, who are on Lightning money line is the community, our community poll over on Twitter and on YouTube. The community is siding with me, and I think with you as well, with the Lightning money line. They are also at minus 130. So I guess
there's a storm brewing at MSG tonight, Donnavan.
I know. Listen, everybody's on the Lightning, and so be ready because it's gonna crack. Series is gonna get tied 1-1, and we're gonna go back to Tampa, and I think that is where they will take control of the series, is in game 3 and 4 back at home. But that has been Daily Betslip today. We had a great show. All locks, all winners, as always. Tomorrow it will be Reed and myself, and we'll be breaking down game 2 of Lightning Rangers. We'll be breaking down a whole bunch of French Open stuff, some MLB games. But until then, may all your bets hit, and have a great day.